Hofstedter Amud Beis. We'll begin Hofstedter Amud Aleph, 10 lines from the bottom. Rav Hamnuna Omer. So again, we're trying to explain the Mishnah, and we had several explanations of the machlokes of the Mishnah of Eliezer and Rabbi Kiva about Psilos Abeged Shehiva, Shekipla Velohiva, and Eliezer says Tameya Vein Madlikin Ba, Rabbi Kiva says Torah Madlikin Ba. So we have now, Rav Hamnuna has another explanation, as far as Rashi explains, as far as whether you can use it as a wick for the neiros. So he agrees with the previous explanation that we had in the Gemara, and he agrees that it's the issue over there is that are they suitable for wicks, because if it's not singed, does it burn properly? So as far as the suitability for wicks for the neiros for Shabbos, he agrees with that explanation. But as far as Tumah, he gives another explanation of what the machlokes is regarding whether we say the beged that was folded into wicks, made into wicks, is Rabbi Eliezer says it's Tameya, and Rabbi Kiva says it's Tar. So he explains as follows. We're talking about a beged that's less than 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim. Meaning it's a beged either of Temer or Pishtim, that it's not less than 3 etzbois by 3 etzbois, because that would certainly not be Tameh at all. But it's also not more than 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim. It's less than 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim. It's between 3 etzbois and 3 etzbois and 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim. It would be more than 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, regardless of the person's intent, as we'll see shortly. We're discussing a case where a person had intent to discard it. If it had that size, if it was that large, the intent would not make a difference. It would be still considered a beged, and it's makabel tumah. If it's less than 3 etzbos or 3 etzbos, again, his intent to use it or not would not make a difference. It's not makabel tumah. We're talking where it's less than 3 tefachim, more than 3 etzbos, and now it's a question of intent. Does his intent to discard it, does that render it into something which is not a beged and which is tor? And we're talking about a kula matlonis that a person treats kal. He treats it, disregards it. He treats it as unimportant. And they both follow their opinions, as we'll see shortly. This time we learn the Mishnah in Kalim. If you have a cloth which is less than 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, now he wants to disregard it. He treats it as not choshev. He's using it not as a beged. He's using it as a shmat, as a rag, to stop up the merchatz. To use it in a merchatz to close up the opening of the merchatz. Ulanar by sekadera, to use it as a cloth to carry a hot pot so it doesn't burn his hands. Ulkaneach by serechaim, or to use it to wipe the mill. So he's using it as a shmata. Bein mina muchan, bein mishena muchan. Whether he later makes it muchan, gives it some sort of designation to give it chashivas or not. Tomei divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says that it is tomei if whether he gives it a very significant designation or not. But the fact that he will now, we see from his actions that after he uses it or designates it as a shmata, now he shows that he wants it, he stores it away. So Eliezer says that reinstates it as a beged, it reinstates it as a beged, and now it's choshev and it can be makabel tumah. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Yeshua bein min amuchan, bein min shaloi min amuchan tor. Rabbi Yeshua says whether it's a significant designation or not, it's tor. Once he discarded it, then it now loses its status as a beged, and it's tor. Rabbi Kiva min amuchan tomei ushaloi min amuchan tor. Rabbi Kiva says it depends what his subsequent designation is to whether it becomes a beged, reinstates it as a beged or not. So the more will explain what do we mean min amuchan or shaloi min amuchan. V'amra ulavitema Rabba bar Chanam Rav Yochanan kol ma'im zarka ba'ashba dibra kol tor. If a person took that and the shmata and he threw it in the garbage, it's certainly tor. He lost its designation as a beged, and it certainly is not being reinstated because he threw it in the ashba, in the garbage. But everyone agrees that if he showed that kind of importance to it, that kind of significance, that even after it was designated as a shmata, but now he puts it in his storage chest. So now he clearly shows, he puts it in his drawer, he clearly shows that he wants it, he wants to retain it, and he's going to be using it as a beged, and therefore it's reinstated, and it is Mekabel Tuma. If after it was designated as a shmata, now he put it on a hook, on a peg, and he had it hanging there, or he put it behind the door. So he gave it some sort of significance, he gave it some sort of importance, he didn't throw it away, he's keeping it, he's storing it, but he didn't give it the very, very chashuv significance of putting it in his store, in his drawer, or in his chest. So what is the halach in that case? Rabbi Lezer we see from the fact that he didn't throw in the garbage, he wants to use it, and therefore it's reinstated as a beg, and it's Mekabel Tumah. So it says bein min hamuchan and shloi min hamuchan. So why do we call this shloi min hamuchan? He put it on a peg or behind the door. Relative to putting it in the kufsa, to putting it in the box, relative to that, that's considered loy min hamuchan. But we're talking in this case, and it says in such a case, Rabbi Lezer says that it's Tomei, since he did not throw into the ashba, it's Tomei. Rabbi Yeshua says no, from the fact that he didn't put it in storage properly in the kufsa, in the box, betula batli, he is negating it, and he is not reinstated as a bagid. But my karle muchan, so why is this called muchan? L'gabi ashba muchan, relative to the ashba, to the garbage, this is considered muchan. But Rabbi Yeshua says, nevertheless, since he didn't put it in the kufsa, it's tor. It's not reinstated as a beg and it's tor. Rabbi Kiva, if he put it on a peg, that's considered significant savrik Rabbi Lezer, and therefore it's reinstated and it's tomei. If he put it behind the door, savrik Rabbi Yeshua, and there he held like Rabbi Yeshua that it's in such a case it's not considered a significant and it's tor. So that's what Rabbi Kiva initially held. But what we see from our Mishnah that Vahadabe Rabbi Kiva L'Gabri Yeshua, we see from our Mishnah that Rabbi Kiva retracted and he held like Rabbi Yeshua, and he held that in both cases it's tor, it's not tomei, and that's what he says in our Mishnah that he argued on Rabbi Lezer, and he said that it's tor. Mine. Amarava, where do we see this? Because Midiktani, it says in the Mishnah, Psilos HaBeged. It says Psilos HaBeged. My ear, the Tani Psilos HaBeged. Listen, Psilos Shel Beged. Normally you take a wick, you make it from strips of a beged. You don't take a whole beged, you take pieces of it, torn pieces of it, and you make a wick from it. The accurate lashon in the Mishnah should have been Psila Shel Beged. Why say Psilos HaBeged? My Psilos HaBeged. The Dain Beged who. What he means to say is that it's still a beged, and it's considered tor, that nevertheless, even though it is a beged, it's still considered a tor, and even though he's a beged, he folded it up, and the beged itself, we say that it is considered a tor, and it has some chashivas of a beged, that therefore, what do you mean it's still a beged? Even if he put it on the hook, if he put it on the peg, and it has some chashivas of a beged, nevertheless it's tor, because that's not enough of a designation, and once he designates the shmata, it's not reinstated with this type of a designation of on putting it on the peg, and therefore we see that he holds like Rabbi Yeshua, since he did not put it away in storage in the kufsa, it's tor. Zok the Mishnah, lo yikav aram shveifer shel beya v'ma'alen shemen. A person should not take an egg shell, a shell of an egg that's hollow inside, fill it with oil, v'yitnan al pi aner, and put it in the mouth of a nair, of a receptacle that's being lit, that's being lit on Shabbos. So the idea over here is he takes the shosher shel beya, he takes the eggshell, he fills it with oil to be as a reservoir, and the oil drips slowly into the receptacle, into the nair, to ensure a steady flow of shemen, of fuel, for the hadlakas nairs. So he should not do that He should not fill it up so that it should drip down into the nair. He should not do that. Why not? So, because we're afraid that the person will view the eggshell as not being part of this nair. And if he wants oil, or he doesn't want all his oil to be consumed, he will now remove the oil from the eggshell. Now, removing oil from a fire, involved in that is mechaber. It's like extinguishing the fire. The Rishonim speak out two reasons for it. Tosfos says because you remove some of the oil supply, it will dim or eventually dim the flame itself, and dimming the flame is also considered mechaber, is a form of extinguishing the flame. The Rosh says is that it will cause the flame, by removing some of the fuel, some of the oil, it will cause the flame to go out earlier than it otherwise would. So what we're afraid over here is a person, if he puts this reservoir, this shofar shalbeya, and so that the oil should drip into the nair, we're afraid that at some point he might not view it as the nair itself, and he might remove some of the oil. And if he removes the oil, that's considered mechaber. Now a person, we're not concerned a person where there's a nair, if you have a receptacle that has flame in it, there's a wick and that's protruding and there's a flame on it, we're not afraid that the person will take oil from the nair, because the person realizes that you can't take the fuel away from the nair. But over here, he might view this as being a separate entity. If it's a separate entity, he might then think that there's no problem in removing the oil from the beya. That's why he should not have this reservoir over here, because we're afraid that on Shabbos he'll come to remove the oil. And even if the reservoir is made out of cheres, I mean, the point is that when it's cheres, usually what's in the kli cheres gets dirty and it's difficult to handle, and a person might naturally refrain from removing the oil. Nevertheless, we're still concerned that if the reservoir is made out of cheres, that he might come to remove the oil, even though it's not so clean, even though he might naturally want not to handle this oil. We're still concerned about it, and it's also. Rabbi Yehuda says it's mutter. But if the yotzer, the artisan, he attached the two together, so the reservoir is firmly attached to the nair, then it has the appearance, it's clear that it's one vessel. So just like a person we're not concerned he'll remove the oil from a nair. If this reservoir is mechuber, is attached, is connected to the nair, it's then one keli, it's one kli. So again, here also we are not concerned in such a case. We're not concerned he'll remove the oil, because it's considered one kli. Similarly, lo yamal adam kara shel shem, a person shouldn't fill a bowl with oil and put it side by side with the nair, and have a long wick which extends from the nair into this other vessel, into the other kli. So this is in effect like the reservoir. It's just one kli side by side, so that the wick should draw from this other kli. Because again, since they're two separate kelim, we're afraid that he might remove the oil from this second kli. And again, Rabbi Yehuda matir, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's mutter. And Zaktamor, we have these cases, and we have these cases which are similar. The idea is similar in all of these cases. Gemara says shricha. I need all of them. The Ashmin and Shveifer Shalbeya, if it only told me the case of the eggshell, the Ha Kamer Rabbanan, over there the Rabbanan say it's also. Why? The came in Deloy Me'isa, it's not most, it's not dirty. So Asila Stupid not. We're afraid that person might take the oil, he would want to use the oil, he might take it away, and that would be the Yisr of Mechava. Al Shel Cheres, but Cheres which naturally the Me'isa, and a person naturally would refrain from taking the oil. You might think the Rabbanan might have Yehuda that we're not concerned. So Kamash Malan that we are. I might have said there, Rabbi Yehuda says it's mutter because we're not afraid he'll take the oil because it's meis, it's mos. Aval bahi ema moed l'rabbanan, but by the actual, you might think they're moed to the rabbanan. V'yash min hanach tati, and if it only told me these two cases, bahani kam Rav Yehuda, I might think over there Rav Yehuda says it's muter mishum delay mifsik, because there's nothing separating the two. The shosher shalbeya or the cheres is in the mouth of the nair, so there it has the appearance of one kli. It has the appearance of being part and parcel of the nair. And just like we're not concerned that a person will remove oil from a nair on Shabbos, so perhaps over there Rav Yehuda says, Dafka over there Rav Yehuda is not concerned because it looks like one kli, and a person similarly will not remove the oil from the shritzeres or from the cheres. Aval kara, but if you have a separate kara, so that clearly looks like it's a separate kli, the mifsik, ema moed l'rabbanan. You might say he's moed as a rabbanan. There it doesn't look like one kli, and it doesn't look like he's removing oil from the nair. And maybe you'd say that Rav Yehuda would be concerned that a person might think that he's not removing oil. If he removes oil from the carrier, he might think it's not considered like removing oil from the nair, and he might come to do it. And you might think that Rav Yehuda says it's also Kamash Malan, that not Biashminan Bahi. And if you only told me the case of the Kahara, I might say Bahi Kamar Rabbanan. There the Rabbanan said Zarva Bahanit Tat Ema Moed Rav Yehuda. But in the other cases, maybe they will be Moed to Rav Yehuda that we're not concerned he'll remove the oil because a person it has the appearance as one kli, and just like he doesn't remove oil from a nair, he won't remove it from the shoferes and the cheres. I need all of these cases. And in all these cases, that Rabbanan say it's also, and Rav Yehuda says it's muter. But if the artisan, he connected it together so that it is one kli, if it's one kli, then it's muter, because just like we're not concerned that a person will remove oil from a nair, this in effect is part and parcel of the nair. The shoferes, the cheres, the reservoir is part of the nair. We're not concerned. Tana im chibra b'sir b'charas is muter. It says if the owner of the balabais himself, if he connected it with sid, with lime or charas, kleitz muter. It says a yotzer, meaning it's a professional. And here we're saying even if the owner who's not a artisan, not a professional, connects it, it's muter. My yotzer kain yotzer. It means similar to yotzer. I mean, it doesn't have to be done by a professional, but it has to be done professionally. I mean, it has to be done that it's connected in a permanent way so that it's clear that this is one kli. If it's one kli, we're not concerned he'll remove the oil. One time we made Shabbos in the attic in Beis Nitz in Lud, and they brought this shofer shalbeya, umalonu shemen, we filled it with oil, we perforated, we made a hole, and we put it on the mouth of the nair. So we did this case that we have in the Mishnah, and they didn't object. So apparently they held, like Rav Yehuda, that it was muter because they didn't object. No, you cannot bring a raya from there that the halachos of Rav Yehuda shiny Beis Nitz. There's reason hain, because over there there's reason, and that's why you're not concerned. Avin sipuro agara safsala balisa deshisha laela merav Yitzchak ben Elazar. So this is similar. We'll bring this down in so far as we're talking about whether they object or don't object. We had the Maisa before where Rabbi Tarfon did not object. We're bringing down another Maisa about objecting to a certain action. Now this is not related to the case of our Mishnah. What's being discussed over there is the Machloikis, Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon, about a davar shein miskaven. If a person is not intending, so he drags a chair on an earthen floor, he might make a charitz, a furrow, which could be a problem of either chayresh or boina, on making a ditch or a furrow in an earthen floor. Rosh Hashanah says, if it's not a psik reish, if it's not inevitable, and his intent is not to make the charitz, if his intent is to bring the chair or the bed from one place to another, and it's not to make the charitz, he says it's muter. Davar shein miskaven is muter. If it's a psik reisha, Rav Shimon agrees that it's also. Rav Yehuda says davar shein miskaven is also. So what happened over here? He dragged a safsala and a bench, ba'alisa the shisha. Now the floor was made out of marble, so it wasn't going to make a charitz anyway, because it was a marble floor. Le'ila min Rav Yitzchak ben Elazar, in front of Rav Yitzchak ben Elazar. Amrle, he said, Ish stukilach, if I'm going to be quiet, kishasiko le'achare le'Rav Yehuda, like the previous ma'aseh which you just had, that they were in Rav Yehuda, that Rav Tarman Skin did not object to what Rav Yehuda did, nafek minei churba. And it'll come out of churba, because people will think that it's mutter to drag it, and they'll think that it's mutter to drag it even on an earthen floor. Now he himself held, like Rav Yehuda, the Darshan Miskaven is awesome. Now, even though right now it's really not a concern because it's a stone floor, it's a marble floor, it's not going to make a charitz, but people will think, well, just like you can drag it here, you can drag it elsewhere. Gzera lisa de shisha to lisa dalma, and therefore we have to be geyser on the marble floor or to a case on an earthen floor. So therefore, if I'm not going to object, then people will think that a davar shenis kaven is mutter, and he held like Rabbi Yehuda that it's also. Therefore, he says I have to object. He dragged a safsal in front of Yerma Rabbah. So he says, you're holding like Rav Shimon that it's mutter, Hashem is mutter. He says, no, but you should not do this, because Rav Shimon b'gedolah. He only, Rav Shimon, says it's mutter with heavy ones, lo yefshem, where it's too difficult, too hard to pick it up. So therefore he's mutter. Now, so long as it's not a psik reisha, that it's not inevitable, in a case where it's very difficult or impossible, he said that it's mutter. But small ones, you could pick it up. If you could pick it up, then even Rav Shimon would say, don't drag it. He says the machlekes is only when they're small. When they're small, that's machlekes. That's where we say that's machlekes where they're small. Aval begedolim difficult mutter. But if it's big ones, and it's not a psik reisha, by big ones, he says, the machlekes is small. There, Rav Yehuda says that pick it up. And Rav Shimon says, even there, it's mutter. By large ones, divra kol mutter, if it's not his intention. If it's not his intention to make the charitz, and it's not a psik reisha, and it's impossible to pick it up, or very difficult to pick it up, then he says, even Rav Yehuda would say that it's mutter. Masav Rav Yosef, Rav Shimon Aimer Gora Adam, Mita Kisei v'Safsal, a person can drag a bed, a chair, or a bench, B'lvad lo yiskam lasas charitz. So it says all these types of furniture, so long as he does not intend to make a charitz. Ketani gedolim, ketani ketanim. So it says big ones and small ones. This is a mita, and it says a kisei and Safsal. So the mita l'char is a big one, and these other ones are small. Kasha l'tavai. So it says both types. So you see that the machlekes is by both large and small. No, they both answer according to their reasonings. He says the mita that we're talking about is similar to a chair. The chair that we're talking about is dumid mita. Meaning each one will be mitaras l'tamei, that the machlekes we're talking about is either by big or by small, and you'll either say the bed is similar to a chair or the chair is similar to a bed. Masiv Rabba Yasukasha Maikrik Sus Markin Kedarka, and people who sell garments, clothing. Now they might have shatnez in it. So you have clothing that has shatnez, nevertheless they can sell the kedarka. Now even though they wear the clothing, either wearing shatnez, so long as they do not intend to get any benefit from them, and assuming that this is not a psik reisha, and so long as they do not intend to get any benefit, either in the sunny season or the winter season or cold season, not to get any benefit from the clothing, any warmth or any benefit from them, then it is mutter. Now the tznuim, who were afraid that there shouldn't be any kind of moitzilas or shemra on them, they did not avail themselves of this, and they took a stick and hung the clothing on the stick not to wear them. Now over here, they don't have to wear them, they could do like tznuim. The chikatanim dani, which is similar to our case of light furniture, small furniture, that you have the option, you could pick it up. Now over there, they have the option. They don't have to wear it. They can put it on the makil like the tznuim. And you see, nevertheless, Rav Shimon says that it's mutter, even though there is an option. Tiyufta Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah Tiyufta. It's a kashan Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah Tiyufta Rav Yirmiyah Rabbah Tiyufta, because you see clearly, even though you do have an option, even though there is an option, Rav Shimon says it's a dor she'en miskavin. You don't intend this to happen. It's not a psik reisha. It's nevertheless, it still is mutter. You see clearly Rav Shimon says, even by katanim, even by light furniture, you don't have to pick it up. If it's not your intention, not a psik reisha, it's mutter.